Yo, what's up? How you doing? I'm Paranoid Rat, and I have returned from the depths with art for you to consume. Bon appetit, my ratlings. Jesus, these intros are getting worse and worse, I swear. If you create characters who have, a world and relationship and stories or whatever, chances are you've wanted to do like a character lineup of them. Lineups of your cast are extraordinarily helpful for you and anyone else who knows / is invested in your characters. There are a lot of benefits to making like a proper character lineup, which I'm going to go over in this video, along with some tips from my experiences, because I have been making lineups for a long time. And I've kind of learned a lot via trial and error, and a lot of error and pain and agony, essentially. But, I'm gonna, pass along the wisdom I have absorbed to you all, so you don't make the same mistakes that I do. Or, go ahead and ignore all this, because, spite is a thing too, and I respect that, honestly. But before I even, start, let me just clarify once again, I am not a professional. I haven't gone to, an art school or anything, and nothing I say here is by any means telling you what you have to do or what's right or wrong when it comes to, art and doing a character lineup or whatever. I've just been drawing for a long time, and these are things that I've learned and benefited from and wish I'd learned sooner as an artist, and my only goal is just to find the other people who will just find something that helps them in my videos, so, that's, helpful and nice. Anyways, to the video. So, what I'm drawing here today is just a cast for one of my stories that I share with my girlfriend that I adore, and they need an updated lineup, which is really what inspired me to make this video in the first place. There are a few details in this lineup that have changed since I drew this, and that are not included in the character, official character designs, I suppose. So I'll probably just go back and update those and whatever, make more canon. But this is still a fine example and, footage or whatever for you guys to watch. Generally, lineups can be quite daunting, especially since I'm prone to making worlds with far too many characters and plots that doing a proper lineup takes eons. I still do it anyways though, because I'm a psychopath or something. Lineups can be helpful for any amount of characters in your story. I feel like, I qualify it as a lineup if there's 3 or more characters, but I guess all the same things I'm going to say here apply to just 2 characters. This one was a nice middle ground where I felt like I could give each character drawing all the detail and rendering I wanted without it being without being horrified by the hours I've spent on this drawing trying to draw a lot of characters. So what are the benefits of drawing your characters in a lineup like this? Glad you asked, young ratlings. There are many. A big one is having all of your characters in one location, especially if you have a larger cast for, any sort of content, even if it's just your D&D campaign's characters. Having all the characters in one location is really useful. My brain cells have rotted and died and can retain nothing of use beyond my weird stories and random facts nobody wants to hear. But even I will forget my own characters or their designs or details from their designs, and just having just one place where I can just look and reference has saved my ass more times than I like to count. So it's quite useful. But I think the biggest use for this is just keeping your designs consistent, diverse, and compare the designs in relationship to each other. I love designing characters. Clearly. And I usually, I'll slowly do designs my own time and add them to the collection of character casts. But sometimes they all just kind of get drawn together in one go, but, rarely. And usually they'll kind of evolve over time as the story evolves and the characters, I figure them out more, so their designs will shift naturally, and as I get better as an artist and character designer. But when I design each character separately, I can kind of forget about who else is in the cast, not quite literally, but, their designs are less fresh in my mind. So, at least for me, it's really important for me to have my characters be very visually diverse in height, body shape, colors, outfit designs, etc. And definitely when I was a younger, more naive artist, I would just unintentionally have a bunch of characters who all looked way too similar and had no contrast, or sometimes swing the opposite direction, and they would even look like they belonged in the same world. But keeping the entire cast's designs in mind, it made, me be a lot more intentional about the choices I made about the designing aspect of each character. Usually when I finally like get around to these lineups, it'll shine a light on what needs to change, and usually I'll make adjustments accordingly. Because a cast that's all the exact same skin tone, body shape, and height can be kind of boring to look at, and at least in my opinion for me. And my characters are usually just for me to draw with stories. I write like novels because it's fun. But it's still, even though these aren't going to be used in like a comic or animation or something, it's just it's still incredibly helpful for me to have just like the visual representation of these characters on hand. So, if I could, need to reference a detail, or just like have a visual representation of them. I feel like I'm just repeating the same things over and over. But I feel like definitely prioritizing diversity and contrast in your character designs is crucial to your characters if they're going to be used in anything like a comic or animation, anything like that. I have a tendency to make all my characters similar heights on accident, so when I do, finally do a lineup of the characters, I find myself adjusting the heights a lot for just making the contrast, making the characters different. And I've certainly got a lot better, as time has gone on. And depending on your style, that level of visual contrast will vary. If your style is like more traditionally like realistic in proportions and such, things like height and proportions will be a lot less extreme. But if you're, say, like making an animated show that's like a lot more cartoony, and the more contrast and extreme proportions, the better. If that makes sense, because just to be like really visually appealing and pop out, and it's not really meant to be realistic when it comes to that sort of thing. And I guess to attempt to wrap up this thought, I like to think of a cast of characters as like its own design, like a character design made up of designs. Is it hard to do well? Yes. Is it worth it when you do get it right? Very much so. And I actually did make a video talking more about designing a cohesive cast if you would like a more in-depth talk on that. I also usually adjust outfits and clothing once I get to the stage too. Some of my characters don't exactly have like their one outfit like a traditional cartoon character, but some of them do, or have at least like one like iconic look, I suppose. So once I get to a lineup, once again, it forces intentionality for contrast in their clothes as well as like their physical appearance. Because there's definitely been times when I'll have my character designs all like hammered down and how I like it, and then I draw them all together and just like realize, oh shit, they're all wearing exactly the same thing. Which is not great for a, interestingly visually diverse cast. And once I have a lineup like this hammered down, once again, great for reference to keep everything consistent in proportion to each other in all aspects of the designs. Because I'm forgetful and want the character to actually, look right with the other characters. So just taking a minute to sit down and just decide, have it, in stone. I mean, it can change it, but I usually won't, because that's not usually a huge considering factor that will change much. But just deciding on the proportions in relationship to each other, it'll just settle all of those debates later on, and it's a huge time saver. And consistency is magic. And even if it's not for an official project, that's professional and you're getting paid or whatever, these are just still good things to practice and can just make everything, you draw just seem just a little bit more refined and professional. And, especially if you're, trying to get a job or something in the industry, having, your characters be consistent whenever you draw them is kind of an important thing. So I think that's kind of all the big stuff. So just quick recap. Lineups are useful for future reference and keeping everything in one place, consistency, and perfecting the designs themselves. But how do you actually design one of these yourself? Again, my video on cohesive casts goes over that really, sort of in depth. But that was more from the standpoint of designing them all together at once, where every decision on one character influenced all the others, which is rarely how I'd actually design characters, but that was just kind of a challenge for myself. So say you have a group of characters like the ones I'm drawing right now, who you already have the designs down pretty firmly, with some wiggle room, but you're but that's not a big deal. but you're just like struggling to actually like draw all of them together. Here are my tips for many years of drawing characters and suffering and failing and also but then succeeding and learning, so that's good. Just try to stay consistent with proportions. I keep talking about this, but like head size, eye size, hand size, etc. My style and proportions, I like, you know, have the tendency to fluctuate from drawing to drawing. If the head sizes are drastically different from each other in, you know, the lineup, it's just going to look weird and like they don't really belong together. If you do digital art, you can check that and even copy and paste from bits and pieces of other characters just to keep like basic sizes consistent and looking natural. Also, drawing them all at the same time will help the style stay consistent too. I used to go through and draw each character separately, and it always looked so weird when I was done because they were just all a bit different and looked like they'd been like copy and pasted and from different pieces entirely, and looked like they were all drawn in different styles. So usually my steps would be go through it and rough out the base skeletons for posing and sizing, then go over that with a more detailed sketch, line art, and you know, and here I'm just kind of jumping around to each character like where they feel like it needs it. It also just like keeps everything, just keep them fresh, and you know, whatever. Then I'll do flat colors, base shading, render, and then any details all in one go. Like just in like a sweep across the drawing in waves. At least for me, this method is the most trustworthy for getting a consistent look. For a bigger cast, it may make it feel like it's taking extra long just because it's just very slow and tedious doing all of the steps for one character. And oftentimes if I do that, I'll probably won't like render and just do like flat colors, which is fine. But this is a small cast and I wanted to render them because it's fun. But you know, this it works. It helps at least. All right, colors. I've put a lot of emphasis on colors in the past when I've like talked about designing and keeping images consistent. I'm all for lots of color and my pieces are usually pretty vibrant, but learning when to pull back is key. And when I draw a bunch of characters like this, I only get like a new color from the color wheel when I absolutely need it. Where I can, I color drop from the rest of the characters. Instead of getting a new black each time, I take the black I already used and use that across all the characters. And it's not usually like a black, it's usually like a, you know, dark gray, brown, or whatever. And I usually try to make sure that they all have like at least one color that is used in all of them across the board. You know, black and white are pretty common for this because most characters will have some of that. Sure, in real life, it'd be highly improbable that they'd all have like the exact same shades of blue or whatever. But when it comes to drawing a visually appealing and cohesive lineup, color dropping is your best friend. And at least in my designs, I like to give each character their primary colors and like a palette that I use. Like, for example, look at Ozzy. He gets mainly blue, Rat gets purple, and Ari gets green. There are, you know, other colors, of course, but having one that is like the focal point keeps contrast. But, you know, if then from there, I'll take some of the blue from Ozzy's skirt and then use it as the rendering and shading color for Ari's green shirt. I know it's easy to look over color palette, and you know, I kind of ignored that for a long time with like, you know, trying to make each character look unique or whatever. But just since I just started putting just a tiny bit of effort into just like the colors that I use and which colors I pick and when I use them, just the slightest bit of effort, it just took my art up like multiple levels just immediately. Just as soon as I started paying more attention to what colors I was using. And I guess if you're still struggling with color consistency, using overlay blending mode layers over it can just give it another good nudge in that right direction. I use this trick on most of my pieces because I just feel like it, you know, makes it all like nice, smooth, consistent. But I feel like it also can be just, you know, really good for a lineup like this because there's a lot of characters and a lot of going on, so like having something that just kind of like centers all the colors can be really helpful, I believe. All right, this is just my last thing. And before I even start a lineup, I'll sometimes, not all the time, but usually, I'll do like a preliminary sketch, especially if it's like a really big cast. I find just doing a teeny tiny lineup just beforehand extraordinarily helpful before I even attempt to do a full piece. I can usually just whip one up in just a few minutes at the base of a page or in the top corner of my canvas. It's super easy, and all I do is just rough out the silhouette of each character. Usually it's just for like body type contrast, because I feel like I already, like, you know, if I have like if I like know what body type I'm doing and like have an idea for like the height and stuff, it'll just like make it when I have to draw it just 10 times easier later on, instead of having to like adjust proportions and stuff later, which can really like, I don't know, I can get really hung up on that, and like it doesn't end up how I want to if I don't like have like a really clear image of what I want it to be. And I'll like just default to what I'm, you know, more used to, which is usually just like really thin and boring. This, you know, isn't meant to be like perfect, and I usually just use like a old pen in my sketchbook. But I think it's really helpful for, again, just like that contrast and finding the shape language and what, you know, these characters' bodies are. So whenever they're all together, it just makes sense, and I can just, it'll just help me catch like a lot of like my problem spots before I even start and they're a problem. Huzzah! Anyways, thanks for sticking to the end. The effort it took not to use up this entire video to rant about my characters was immense, so be proud of me. But I really hoped this helped you if you were struggling with this or wanting to draw a lineup, but have no idea where to start. I mean, who knows, this could have just been, you know, an incoherent ramble to anyone but me. And if so, impressed you made it to this far. These ideas and tips have really just helped me, and they could just be specific to me, but I hope that there's like at least someone who benefited from hearing this. Lineups, once you get better at them, do wonders for your like own efficiency, and definitely makes your art look a bit more professional. I think the final thought I want to leave you guys on is just, even if none of my tips or methods helped you at all, or if you hated this video, I don't know, whatever, it can just be like a good starting place for you to find where you struggle and find ways to minimize that and problem solve and help yourself. Something that just works for somebody else can be useless to another person, and that's okay. We're different people and different artists with different skills and strengths. But I guess this goes for anything I talk about on this channel. I just really want to be like a stepping stone to helping you get better as artists with my own experiences and knowledge I learned, and just be another nudge to finding what works for you and you specifically. Anyways, thank you. Please leave your thoughts in the comments, or just like or subscribe, or just like lurk in the dark like a ominous cryptid. That's good too. One of my favorite things to do is read your comments and talk with you guys, and any support means a lot to me. And this is really motivating to keep up with this channel and making videos, you know, actually knowing that people are watching them and enjoying them. Anyways, class is dismissed. Ciao.